Hi, I'm Derek, and I've been automating tasks in Excel for over 20 years now. From shortcuts to automatically updating hundreds of files and sheets, slides, or even emails in just one step, I've saved years throughout my career by trying to be as efficient as possible and focusing my time on what matters most. I bundled the best of these tools into an Excel add-in so that anybody can use them. You'll be able to navigate faster, format faster, build formulas faster, make updates faster, and even control other apps like Outlook, PowerPoint, and Google Chrome. If you want to see how, stick around for this brief demo where we'll look at just some of the tools that can save you over 200 hours a year with common Excel tasks. Let's start with a quick overview. When you install the add-in, you'll see a new tab on your ribbon menu. It's organized by sections and the menus that house the various tools like you're seeing here. You can add your favorites to the shortcuts menu. You can also add your own custom macros so that they will always be available no matter what file you have open. But if you're like me, you probably won't use the UI much. That's because you can set your own keyboard shortcuts, even in bulk like you're seeing on the sheet here. Those are going to help you save time, share with others, or in this case, you can print it out so you can learn those. For the tools you use most, I definitely recommend using a shortcut. It's easily 3 times faster than using the mouse. For everything else, you can leverage the global search box. This lets you search for things like macros here. Notice the swap values macro. When you have that highlighted, it's going to show you that you can set or unset keyboard shortcuts. That UI shortcut at the top, you can favorite it. You can also learn a little bit more about that. So notice that you press enter with the whole thing there, and if you want to use it again because you want to undo it, just press it again. It's going to show you the 10 most recent things that you searched for in the global box. You can also run any that you've added as custom macros. This one's a little bit fun, but notice that's something that you could add if you wanted, if there's something you're always inserting. You can even run something that is in the active workbook. So if we look for the word drink here, this is just a fun one that says, hey, it's today, you should drink, it's Monday, you should have Cabernet. You can also search for other things beyond macros, such as your favorite Lambda custom functions. And notice when it's searching something different, you have different attributes pop up, like what group it is in, the formula, the comments, etc. We'll look more at that particular type in just a few minutes. You can also jump to a recent file that you've saved. This makes it incredibly easy to find any file very quickly. This happens to be one where I am tracking all of the different push-ups I'm doing with what's called the push-up challenge. You can also search for sheets within the file. So if we're going to search for the sheet called Connecticut here, where there's a bunch of different state name sheets, you can do that as well. And if you want to jump to a particular named range, in fact, I made one called swap range so we could get back to that same range, you can do that quickly as well. So named ranges in that case are a lot like shortcuts. One search box that can save you a ton of time, and we're just getting started. In addition to searching, you can also navigate and run commands faster with several custom pick list menus. We're looking at one called the Sheet Picker here. Press T to run table of contents, and it's going to insert hyperlinks for all those to help you navigate. Run it again, press L to jump to the last sheet. Or press F, notice that's my default, so it's already highlighted, there's nothing to actually press, to jump back to the front, which hopefully is where you have that table of contents saved. Several other options there to help with sheets. Filtering is another example where we can save a lot of time. Notice with the filter picker here, we can press A to apply filter, add freeze panes, and optionally make the columns the right widths. Several other options here. So if we wanted to pick a couple of values, if we press option T, it's going to filter to those. If you want to press option X, it's going to filter them out. Option U will filter out for all columns. There are several other options going to help you filter for blank, zeros, numbers, the next or previous values, and so many more. One that I find particularly helpful is reusing your filtering as well as sorting in other similar functions. Notice if we press option D, you can save your custom filters, sorts, and column widths. We're going to use option T, and what this does is it's going to filter column C, the actuals, to 0 or below 0, and column E, the budget, anything that is above 0. This is a very common filter that I would have to do all the time when I was reviewing P&Ls. This helps you reuse it when the structure is going to be the same with that file. Okay, now look at these other sheets, same structure. If we want to copy these exact same filter settings, option S is going to help us do that. So it's going to notice that there's 2 filters in place and apply them to any other sheets in the file that have the exact same filter range. So notice in one step, we applied it to 4 sheets. Now imagine that with like 70 sheets, which is something that I've done many times before. If you want to unfilter, just press U. And then notice the other sheets are still filtered, but we can easily apply that as well to those other sheets. Okay, so making it really easy to filter all over the place. Formatting is another area where we can save a ton of time with several different approaches. One of my favorites is just highlighting. Notice that I'm toggling through my favorite highlight colors. You can customize those to whatever you want using one shortcut. Another example is using that with number formats. Now, number formats can be especially tricky because of how incredibly customized they can be. So there's a couple of other options here. We can use a special number format picker that's going to show you those 5 custom options used in the toggle. Is another way to set them. And then you've also got some defaults. So that's another way. And in third, you can also search for your favorites. For the ones you don't use the very most, notice that I'm going to search this, a similar search box. Let's say we want to look for a percentage that has arrows and colors. Bet you didn't know you could do all those things just with custom number formats. And then if you want to reset it, just use that toggle again. Another area is conditional formatting. You can do some really cool things with conditional formatting, but when they depend on formulas, that can take quite a bit of time to type out. So there's several that are available for you that are helpful. Click A to add banding. Okay. If you want to then apply something like variances, notice that you can use green for above or better, red for below 0 or worse. That's another option. If you wanted to then do something similar, when you want to check that you have tie-outs that are working, I like to say green is good and red is bad, so you can apply that. Maybe you want to find any hard-coded formulas, or hard-coded values. You can press R to highlight any of those hard-coded values. In this case, there we go. We want to set those up. All right. And let's say you want to pause things. Okay. So if you wanted to pause stuff because you have a whole bunch of things that you want to highlight and be able to see, you may not know that conditional formatting will override any fixed values. So we can actually pause anything in the active sheet or all the sheets, and notice we had highlighted something and now you can see that. Okay, so that's another option as well. And then lastly, you can format things in bulk. So this is an example of a settings sheet where you run it, it will add this to your active workbook, then you fill it in and it can apply things in bulk. I've done this with dozens of examples that are really going to speed things up. So once that sheet is in there, we just have to run it again. This is where the search box becomes extremely helpful. And notice what it did. It updated 8 ranges based on the sheet, the range, the type, the format value. It applied all these to this one sheet over here. But just imagine if you're using Excel as a tracker or something else and you want to apply those over and over again, this makes it a really easy way to do it. Reusing your effort as much as you can is a great way to be more efficient, and formulas are a great way to do that, especially with how much more complex they're getting. Building custom Lambda functions is becoming much more common to reuse that formula building effort. To manage those Lambdas, you got a couple of options. First of all, we can edit them all in bulk using a library that's stored in the background. And when you run the bulk edit Lambda formulas macro, it's going to add that to your active sheet. You can make any changes. You can add one or more of these to your active workbook in one step. Now that's also going to power the Lambda search box within the global search box. So if we wanted to search for something, say, how do we calculate Easter? Notice that there's actually a formula for doing that. It's in a particular group, and you can add all the Lambdas in that group to this active workbook in just one step. There's your formula, there's the comments, etc. So with that full name highlighted, it's going to add that. It looks like there's some that are already included, so it'll override those with whatever your newest is. And noticed in your named ranges here, we've got a whole bunch that are in that same group. I like to use L underscore at the beginning just to denote that those are Lambdas. But what you can do after we've done that is then use that. So we're just going to say it's for this year. There's the date. Awesome, right? You can also have your Lambdas automatically saved to that library when you make a new one if you would like to. Now, when you have a lot of formulas in your references, you can automatically search for those. Notice that this is going to take the formula at the top there. It's going to splice that, and it's going to say, here's all the references. Now, if you wanted to jump to one of those in another sheet, okay, notice this one has a similar formula in it, but it's a different sheet. We can press enter and jump to that. We can also jump back if we want very quickly with the same shortcut. It's using context. If you wanted to go to a different file, it would automatically open that file, and then it would log that, so you can jump back to this one whenever you want to. So making it very, very easy to help navigate formulas, especially when they get a little bit complex. There are several other formula shortcuts like these designed to help you work quicker and reuse your effort over and over again. Let's move into automating things in bulk. Automating repetitive, high volume steps is a fantastic way to use Excel because it works so great at building the list with things like copy and paste, find, replace, filtering, sorting, and of course, formulas. I like to use a template sheet approach to Excel. You saw this earlier with the formats. You're going to see it right here with updating a bunch of sheet names. Notice at the very back here, we have a whole bunch of sheets with state names. We want to rename them to the abbreviation. So we're going to just run a macro called rename. Notice we've got that right there for sheets. Okay, it did it very, very quickly. So if you scroll to the right, you'll see that those have all been updated. I had a colleague earlier in my career who would spend at least an hour a week renaming 60 or 70 sheets, probably multiple times. And I had a new best friend once I showed her how to automate this. But while that was great, it opened her eyes for so many other things that we could then automate. If you want to sort ranges in one step across several sheets, we can easily do that. There we go. So it's going to apply those. And all those sheets that we renamed over here, it's going to sort those in whatever way that we want. Okay. Let's say we want to create a whole bunch of folders. So notice the before state of the folders here. We've got nothing in this create folders parent folder. We're going to run this, create subfolders there. And in a matter of a couple of seconds, now we have 212 folders. This is something I've had to do many times as either an annual roll forward step or a prep step where we wanted to have weekly sheets for every single location. So it was a lot more than just the 212 here. And this made it so much quicker. And again, it's formula driven. So at the very top here, everything's driven off of that first input. It's all formula based. So you can reuse this effort over and over again. That bulk approach is often helpful in working with other apps, and great news, Excel plays really nicely with other apps. There are often times you want to add a bunch of calendar items or contacts or tasks all at once. While you can import those to Outlook, it is a really clunky process. Why not connect directly to something like Outlook and add, edit, or delete those items in bulk? Here's an example with appointments. Now remember, this is formula driven, so we can quickly build this list and reuse it. Now, if we wanted to search for the appointments macro, just got to spell that correctly. Bulk edit appointments, it's going to say, hey, do we want to import these? Okay, so very quickly, 22 have been added into my calendar. Notice that those are over here. Okay, so those were added automatically, but even better, we can delete those. Okay, so we've got the ID right here, so if you need to make an edit, like change the category, location, or in our case, we're going to delete those because this is a demo and I don't want to clutter up my entire calendar there. So we're going to delete those, and just like that, they've all disappeared. Okay, you could do the same thing with contacts, with tasks, etc. For this particularly, I built a template that added over 1,000 of these for all my kids' activities: drop off, pick up at school, piano, band, tennis, volleyball, church, all the things. It makes it so much easier to populate Outlook, reuse my effort from the year before, and share with family and friends so they can use it too. Take a similar approach with those other items. Now, emails, another great way we can use this. I've been the chair of finance committee and other things at church, and I'd have to send out a whole bunch of stuff every couple of weeks, including our monthly meeting. And so I use a template like this because the files we would attach were always the same. The dates were always very predictable. And rather than spend 30 minutes drafting the message, I could use this to do it. Or if you need to send a bunch of messages to a whole bunch of people, there are other ways to do that as well. You can even use Excel to help keep things organized and file your messages. I use this and it saves me 2 or 3 hours a week. What it's doing is it's looking at all the folders you have and the subjects and comparing those and suggesting a folder. You can always change those when you run this. You can also set up very basic rules in Outlook like you're seeing right here. So what sender, what domain, what subject, attachments, etc. Here's the folder that could use. So a combination of preset rules and some similarity is really going to save you a lot of time keeping your email organized. And lastly, this might be the most powerful thing in the entire add-in: the ability to control Google Chrome. Why is that useful? Well, we spend a lot of time on websites and web apps filling in information, extracting information, configuring software, etc. So what you're doing here is simply listing out the different actions that you're performing, the clicks, the text entry, the drop downs, etc. And you're saying which items are we interacting with? Do we want any pauses to where there's any user interaction, like entering a password or something? And do we want to skip any conditional steps? So you can kind of link these to inputs and make that easier. Filling in forms like expense reports, Job applications, just imagine all the different things you can automate with a process like this. Okay, run dozens of different reports and just change the store number or something like that. I'm going to run an example of this. One of my colleagues calls this the bro macro because you could just type for the word bro. Now what it's going to do is pop up in another window. I'm going to bring that over here just so you can see it. Now again, this is a very basic example of just filling in a feedback form on my website, but just imagine what it could do. The examples I gave earlier. One of my favorites is where I could configure software. It used to take me 40 minutes a day because it was 800 individual clicks. That list was 800 steps long, right? This did it automatically. So again, it just did kind of a basic fill in of a form here, but saves a lot of time. I helped one of my colleagues automate a process where she was spending several hours every payroll run having to upload a different file for every location. We use this to automate it. Remember, when you're doing something repetitive, there's often, almost always, a better way. That's it for today's demo. I'm sure you found several helpful tools that you can use that will help you save a lot of time and make Excel more powerful and easier to use. If you want to give this a try, please go to www.XLEV8.co under the app section, or use the comments or the link to the comment in the comments below. And if you found this helpful, please give it a like, add a comment, share or tag with a friend. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on awesome Excel tools, tips, and tricks. Thanks for watching and have an excellent rest of your day.